Yes! What is up, everyone? It's your favorite part-time YouTuber, Jimmy Conrad. And I know there's a lot of noise out there about the World Cup, and apparently that's a pretty big deal. But the club season is still playing, so let's show some respect for the 95% of the players around the world that will not be going to the World Cup, like Erling Haaland and Mo Salah and every Italian, because they can't win the games they should in qualifying by focusing on a competition that they all get to play in. Unless, of course, you're Italian and you play for Juventus. Anyway, I'm talking about the Champions League, because the draw for the knockout rounds of Europe's top club competition until the Super League arrives has just happened. And do we have some crazy-ass matchups, everyone? Though, let's be honest, a lot can and will most likely happen between now and when the knockout rounds start in mid-February, because we have this Winter World Cup thingy and a January transfer window. So teams that are good but not great could potentially get better during that time, especially if they want to spend that cheddar. So let's just give our initial thoughts and gut reactions about these round of 16 games, and that'll be me on camera and you in the comments after you hit like and subscribe, of course, and then we can revisit all of our thoughts after the transfer window closes. And up first, it's Liverpool versus Real Madrid, which is a replay of last season's final, which, outside of a few timely saves by Madrid's goalkeeper Thibaut Courtois, it really felt like Madrid's to win, which they did because that's what Madrid do. They now have 14 Champions League trophies, which is double the next best, which is AC Milan with 7. Now, maybe you're thinking that since it's over 2 legs instead of a one-off final, Liverpool have a chance. And maybe they do, because they seem to play better against better opposition this season, with all due respect to Nottingham Forest. But this stat is sticking in my head. The stat where Liverpool have been knocked out of the Champions League by Spanish clubs in 4 out of the last 5 seasons. Plus, every time I say Madrid are going to lose, they win. So I got Madrid going through. In the second matchup, it's the new and improved under relatively new manager Marco Rose, RB Leipzig, taking on the new and improved because they added the robot Erling Haaland, Manchester City. And maybe, just maybe, in a one-off game, I could see Leipzig doing the business because they have incredibly talented players on their team, and Christopher Nkunku. I'm looking at you specifically, but we all know that this is the trophy that matters the most to City's manager Pep Guardiola, and I don't really see anyone beating them over 2 legs. That's right now, in a week, in a month, in 2 months, in a year, it doesn't matter. Over 2 legs, I'm taking City over Leipzig. In the third matchup, it's Club Brugge versus Benfica, and this is the sorry I picked you to get dead last in the group, but look who made it to the round of 16 for the first time in their history team versus a Portuguese team in European competition. So who do you think I'm going with? Benfica! In the fourth matchup, it's AC Milan versus Tottenham, and this one is tough because both teams are capable of playing that underwhelming football, as it were. But given what I've seen from both clubs so far, especially Spurs, who seem to lack that consistency that you'd expect from a roster with this much talent and with a manager with this much experience, so I'm going to give Milan the slight edge. We only lost 4 games this season, once to Napoli, which, fair play, Napoli is excellent right now. Twice to Chelsea in the Champions League, which is nothing to feel ashamed about. They're a pretty good team. And once to Torino, who are tough to beat away from home, which is what happened. But it's the 2 losses to Chelsea that stand out and give me some pause, because historically, Milan's record when playing in England is abysmal. So if they're going to lose that leg to Spurs, they got to keep it close. And former Juve and Inter manager Antonio Conte now coaches Spurs, and he knows Milan well. He knows them inside and out. But still, I just kind of like Milan's team better at this particular moment. So I'm going to lean towards them until I maybe change my mind later. But no, I'm going with Milan. Let's go, boys. In the fifth matchup, it's the reigning Europa League champions Eintracht Frankfurt versus the current best team in Europe, Napoli. Yeah, I said it. Napoli are absolute studs this season, and I don't want you to tell me otherwise in the comments because I won't believe it. But because most of their players didn't qualify for the World Cup, like their players from Italy, Nigeria, and Georgia, they're going to be very well rested heading into the second half of the season, and I think that is very important. And Eintracht fans, stop with your, oh, we beat West Ham and Barcelona and Real Betis away from home last season, and we got to the final and won it. And yeah, I get it, and I respect it, but this Napoli team is a different gravy, so off we to say. In the sixth matchup, it's Borussia Dortmund versus Chelsea, which from an American perspective is absolutely awesome. Gio Reyna versus Christian Pulisic, yes please. Or from a British perspective, Mason Mount versus Jude Bellingham, that is amazing. Inject that straight into my veins. That is the good stuff. But overall, I like Chelsea because no matter who their coach is, the core players of this team have won this competition in the past, and I believe that experience is very important. Now, With that being said, ever since Todd Boehly assumed control of the team, he's been on a buying and selling spree, which has already included one managerial change. So who knows what's going to happen with him when the January transfer window opens up and then closes. And I just think, I don't know, it's tough. It's going to be close. But I think the fine margins are going to tip to the Blues. In the 7th matchup, it's Inter Milan versus Porto. And let's start with Porto, who did incredibly well to rebound from losing their first 2 group stage games to win 4 in a row, because Portuguese teams in European competitions, man, they're always so tough to beat, which could prove to be a problem for Inter, who are struggling in Serie A and were well beaten by Bayern Munich before showing their quality in their 2 games against Barcelona to secure the 2nd spot into the round of 16. Now, the X factor for me is probably Romelu Lukaku. If he can catch fire in the World Cup with Belgium and get that confidence going that he had the first time he played for Inter, I think Inter will go through. But who am I kidding? Porto is Portuguese, and they're going to do the business here. And finally, in the last matchup, it's a repeat of the 2020 Champions League final, PSG versus Bayern Munich, which honestly feels a little unfair that these two are playing against each other so early in the knockout rounds. But if PSG just could have done the job in either of their 2 group stage games against Benfica, then they would be playing Club Brugge instead of Super Bayern, so it's their own goddamn fault. Well, what a matchup this is. Holy-ish. Bayern have been absolutely cruising since their only loss of the season to Augsburg in the middle of September, and listen to this. Since that loss, they have won 11 out of 12 in all competitions and scored 47 goals in those 12 games. What? They're averaging almost 4 goals a game over that span. What? Now, of course, the best counter to those numbers is to have a team filled with world-class players that can win games by themselves, and thankfully for PSG, they just happen to have that, and 3 of those world-class players all play up top in Messi, Neymar, and Mbappe. So as of right now, my gut is telling me that they're going to be tied over 2 legs, and then they're going to be tied through extra time, and that this will be decided in penalties. But I could change my mind because it's my channel, and I can do what I want. I can do what I want. I'm Conradinho, and I can do what I want. Anyway, that's it. That's all I got. So what are your thoughts about my thoughts and about the knockout rounds overall? And I'll see you next time when we pivot to the World Cup. Later.